Good day everyone, we are the group 1 and we're going to tackle about the global divides, the north and the south. So learning objectives. Learning objectives are we are able to know how did the global divide develop, why the global divides the north and the south, and what is the differences between the third world and the global south. And we're going to be able to differentiate the global south from the third world and analyze how new conception of global relations. So, global divides the North and the South. The global divide between the North and the South is a concept often used to describe disparities in economic development, wealth, living standards between centuries and regions around the world. The terms North and South do not refer strictly to geographical locations, but rather the socioeconomic and developmental characteristics. The North-South divide is simplification of complex global reality, and there are variations within regions and countries. Additionally, some countries in the South have made significant progress in recent decades, challenging the traditional divisions. So this divide is characterized by several different keys, like economic disparities. Northern countries, often referred to as developed or industrialized nations, tend to have higher levels of income, advanced industrial economics, and better living standards compared to any southern countries, which are often labeled as developing or less developed. Access to resources. Northern countries typically have greater access to resource, technology, and infrastructure, enabling them to advance economically and technologically faster than the southern countries. Health and education. There are significant disparities in healthcare and education between the North and the South, with northern countries generally having better healthcare systems and educational opportunities. And political power. Northern countries often wield more political power and influence on the global stage, including in international organizations like United Nations. Poverty and inequality. Southern countries frequently struggle with higher levels of poverty, income, and contributing to the overall global wealth gap. And the last is the historical factors. Historical factors including colonialism, imperialism, have played a significant role in shaping this divide, as many southern nations were subjected to colonized, which had lasting economic and social effect. So, effect to address this global divide includes international development initiatives, foreign aid, and policies aimed for promoting economic growth and reducing poverty in southern countries. However, achieving global economic equity remains a complex and ongoing challenge. So, the history of divide is the idea of categorizing countries by their economic and developmental status. Began during the Cold War, and the classifications of East and West. The Soviet Union of China represented the East, and the United States and their allies represented the West. The term Third World was coined by states hoping to navigate between the two poles and the Cold War, and ultimately gave birth to the non-aligned movement. These countries were generally less economically developed than their first. The Second World counterparts, as some Second World countries joined the First World and others joined the Third World. A new, simpler classification was needed, and the First World became the North and the Third World became the South.
So, I'm Decadent RJ Ken Tyler, and my topic is how did global divide develop? So, nganong naitabo ang global divide? So, there are a lot of reasons or cause of global division, and here is only two reasons. First is the issue of slavery, issue of balance and empower federal government. So, the global divide arose during the Cold War of the mid-20th century. So during this time, countries were primarily categorized according to their alignment between Russia East and American West. So nitabo na ang global divide tungod sa Cold War era nga gi-generalize sa pundok nga mga countries into distinct group. So the global divide was developed to describe a group of countries along the lines of socioeconomic and political characteristics. So Socio-economic is naghisgot na siya og estado sa tao o sa nasod o ang estado sa nasod kung pobre ba or dato. Mao na socio-economic. Ang political characteristic, kung moingon sa tag political characteristic, mao na siya ang about sa politiko. For example, naay mga kapartido, naasay kontrapartido. State that we are generally seen as part of the global north tend to be wealthier, less unequal, and considered more democratic ang global north, and the developed country who expert technology and advanced manufacture product. So mao na ang global north, mura siya ng dato na democratic. So on the other hand, state that are generally poorer developing country with younger, more fragile democracy tend to be part of global south. So ang global south ay kay kuan kaning pobre moy sa kinaubsan sa kanang mo pobre siya na ubos na kuan democratic din siya pero pobre. So the north and the south divide is broadly considered a social, economic, and political divide. So, ang pagka-categorize sa global north and south kay wala nag-base sa geographic position of country daw. Kay again nag-base na sila sa socio-economic o political for example Australia, New Zealand locate in southern hemisphere pero part na sila sa global north. Kay pasok man sila sa kanang pasok kay nasud sila kay dato kat naman sila kanang dato man sila na nasod o maalay sila sa political categories na mga countries nga nasa north. So in additional information daw, global north is first world or developed country. So ang global north mo na ang first country na nag-develop mo ay dato na develop na country na. So global south daw, ang global south is third world developing country. So nagdeveloping pa or nagprocess pa sa ilang nasod mao na ang global south. So that's all, thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am the Cadet Flores Manunuse, and I am going to report my topic, which is why global divides the north and the south. And so here it is. The north-south divide refers to the socio-economic and cultural differences between the northern and the southern regions. These differences can be attributed to a variety of factors. Mao ni siya ang historical, economic, and political factors. Historically, the north of many countries has often been more industrialized and wealthier than the south. So, when you say it is more industrialized and wealthier than the south, then industrialized and wealthier, it means they are the rich country. They are the rich side of the globe, and this is because the north is typically closer to natural resources. So when you say resources, there are a lot of resources in earth. Example is petroleum, and cotton, when you're making clothes for your business, and so on. So which made it easier for industries to develop. Dagan silang mga resources nga makuha ka kay tungod sa kalapad sa ilahang ug sa ilang tungod sa kalapad sa ilahang nasod. And additionally, the North often had a more educated and skilled workforce. If when you say if you say educated, so there are genius and they have a lot of ideas to put it on a to put it on into a product and scale workforce. Dagan sa sila mga workforce nga sakto sa training, which is also contributed to its economic growth. Economically, the north-south divide can also be attributed to the distribution of resources and investment. The northern regions of many countries have traditionally received more investment and resources than the southern regions. So, as what I've said, the northern regions are developed countries. Majority of them are rich, and the and which has led to a greater concentration of wealth and economic than the southern regions. In the north, politically there can be also north-south divide as a result of different political ideologies and systems. For example, some countries have a federal system of government, which there is a greater degree of autonomy given to the regions. So, sa ilang globalization sa north and the government system nila, mas natagaan og pagtagad ang mga tao, nakabenepisyo sila sa ilahang nasod. This can lead to differences in policies and development between the north and the south. In summary, the north-south divide is a complex issue that can be attributed to a variety of historical, economic, and political factors. So that's all, and thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good day, everyone. I am Decadet Oidupalan, and I'm here to discuss about the differences between the Third World and the Global South. So let's start. So the term Third World historically refers to countries that were aligned neither with the communist eastern part of countries nor with the capital West. During the Cold War in current culture, however, the term is normally used as a substitute for developing countries. It was originally a political and ideological classification rather than an economic one. Over time, the term has fallen out of favor because of its association with Cold War politics and its oversimplification of complex global economic and social issues. So let's go to the Global South. Meanwhile, the term Global South, also called as developing countries, it is generally used in the context of the economic and developmental disparity between countries in the northern and southern hemisphere. The proportion of developed countries is far higher in the northern hemisphere than in the south. So, the Global South includes countries from Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Oceania that tend to have lower income level, less industrialization, and are often marginalized in the global economic system. It also emphasizes economic disparities and global power imbalances, focusing on issues related to development, poverty, and inequality. In summary, while both terms are used to describe countries facing economic challenges and inequalities, Third World has historically connotation related to Cold War politics, whereas Global South is a more contemporary and economical focused term that highlights disparities in development and global power. So, the use of Global South is generally considered more politically correct and precise in today's discussions of global issues.
I am Cadet Abundo Patrick, and I'm here to present what is the definition of the term Global South. So, the term Global South refers to a socio-economic and geopolitical concept used to describe countries and regions located primarily in the southern hemisphere that are often characterized by lower levels of economic development. So, ang Global South is a country which is very poor, that their society is just industrial, not evolved by the industrial society, and, and less political influence on the global stage compared to global north, which includes more politically influential countries primarily in the northern hemisphere. The global south is often associated with challenges such as poverty, underdevelopment, and issues related to social and economic inequality. It is a term commonly used in discussions of global politics, economics, and development. So, ang global south is more likely it is easy to colonize because of their society. They are just their society is just more on agricultural than the northern global north are more on industrial, which has they have guns and more on technologies compared to northern compared to southern. So the southern is easy to colonize because they they experience poverty more than the northern. So that's what I understand to southern. There are very poor, low of economics, low of political, and they have challenges in living compared to northern, which is the northern is the first world compared to southern, which is the third world. So the third world is let let us just say poor country, and the first world is rich country. So that's how I define the global global south. Thank you.
So good day. My topic is differentiate the global south from the third world. So the term global south and the third world have been used historically to describe different groups of countries, but they are not synonymous and have evolved over time. It's important to note that these terms can be seen as outdated and somewhat simplistic in today's more nuanced understanding of global economic and political dynamics. So, however, they can still provide some insight into different perspectives on international development and geopolitics. Here's differentiation between the two. So there are four. So first is the historical context. Historical context. So in historical context, third world, the term third world originated during the Cold War era to categorize countries based on their alignment with either the Eastern Bloc, the first world comprising capitalist countries led by the United States, or the Eastern Bloc, the second world comprising communist countries led by the Soviet Union. So countries that didn't align with either bloc were referred to as the third world. So for the global south, the concept of the global south emerged as a more modern and nuanced term to describe countries facing common socio-economic challenges, often in the southern hemisphere. It includes nations from Africa, Latin America, Asia, and Oceania that may have historically been colonized or marginalized. So the second is economic development. For the third world is the term third world originally focused on the Cold War divide and did not necessarily imply economic development or underdevelopment. So for global south, the global south tends to emphasize economic development, disparities, and common challenges faced by the countries in the southern hemisphere, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of access to resources.
In geopolitical alignment, the Third World was associated with countries that did not align with either the Western or Eastern Bloc during the Cold War. It had more a political connotation, while Global South is less tied to geopolitical alignment and more focuses on shared economic and developmental challenges. Temporary usage. The term Third World has fallen out of favor in contemporary discourse due to its Cold War origins and simplistic classification. It considered less precise and potentially pejorative. Global South is a more commonly used term today to discuss issues related to development, inequality, and global economics. It acknowledges that not all countries in the Southern Hemisphere are similarly situated and highlights the complexity of their challenges. In summary, while the term Third World and Global South both pertain to countries in the Southern Hemisphere, they have different historical origins, connotations, and focuses. Third World emerged during the Cold War with a geopolitical context, while Global South is more contemporary term emphasizing economic development and common challenges faced by these countries. However, it's essential to recognize that both terms can be oversimplification and may not accurately capture the diversity and complexity of countries within these regions.
Good day, I'm Dick Karit Zavala. My topic is analyze how a new conception of global relations emerged from the experience of Latin American countries. The emergence of a new conception of global relations from the experience of Latin American countries can be understood through several key historical and geopolitical factors. Colonial legacy. Latin American history of colonization by European powers, primarily Spain and Portugal, laid the foundation for initial global relations. The legacy of exploitation and resource extraction during colonial times shaped early perception of global relation as exploitation and unequal. Independence movement. The 19th century independence movement in Latin America led by figures like Simons Bolivar and Jose de San Martin marked significant turning point. These struggles for independence fostered a sense of national identity and sovereignty, sparking the idea that Latin American nation could engage with the world as independent entities. Mori Doctrine. The Mori Doctrine, articled by President James Mori in 1823, declared that the Americans should be free from European intervention. This doctrine had a lasting impact on Latin Americans' relation with the global powers, especially the United States, and contributed to the nation of autonomy in the region. Cold War era. During the Cold War era, Latin America became the battleground for ideological and geopolitical conflict. The region saw the rise of authorization regimes, often surprised by superpower, which influenced perception of global relation as a power struggle with the local consequence. Economic dependency. Latin American economic relation with the world have often been characterized by the dependency on global powers, particularly the United States. This economic independence has led a period of economic instability and the crisis shaping the perception that global relation can be exploitative. That's all.
Good day, sir. Good day, classmate. I am the cadet Chalico John Philip, and I'm here to discuss the emergence of a new conception of global relations from the experiences of Latin American countries can be understood through several key historical and geopolitical factors. 6. Globalization. The late 20th century brought increased globalization and trade liberalization. Latin American countries began to engage more actively in the global economy, seeking economic growth and development. This shift highlighted the importance of international cooperation and trade in reshaping global relations. 7. Regional integration. Latin American countries have also pursued regional integration efforts, such as the formation of organizations like the Organization of American States or OAS and the Union of South American Nations or UNASUR. These initiatives aim to strengthen regional cooperation and asserts the region's voice on the global stage. 8. Movements. Latin America has been a hotspot for social movements and advocating for indigenous rights, environmental protection, and social justice. These movements have highlighted the importance of civil society in shaping global relations and addressing issues like climate change and inequality. 9. Diplomacy and multilateralism. Latin American countries have now increasingly turned to diplomacy and multilateral forums, such as the United Nations, to address global challenges like conflict resolution and sustainable development. This reflects growing emphasis on cooperation and diplomacy in global relations. In summary, Latin American experience have contributed to emergence of a new conception global relations characterized by a gaze for autonomy, economic diversification, regional integration, and a greater emphasis on diplomacy and cooperation. While challenges and inequalities persist, the region's evolving role global affairs reflects a more assertive, nuanced approach to engaging with the world. That's all, sir. Thank you.